will get you to Indigenous cause. My name is Heart Warrior, and this is Grandma's opinion. First, I want to start out by telling you a little story about this time I met this cockroach and cut a deal with him. And, well, I was in college, and I used to cram the night before tests, and I was cramming. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was really quiet and still, and I was hunched over my book like this. All of a sudden, this cockroach comes tromping across the page, and I went like this, and the cockroach went. We scared each other. We both jumped back, and I decided rather than scream and try to smack him or anything, that I would talk to him. So I started going and sending him ideas, you know. And I said, I said, you're just a little bitty cockroach, and I'll cut a deal with you. I'm going to take all the crumbs from my kitchen and put them on the corner, on the counter there. The counter was right there. And I'll leave it for you every night. Because you're small, and I know you don't eat that much compared to what we eat. And if you do me one favor, don't come out when the light is on. When it gets dark, then you and your buddies can come out. So the cockroach was like, with his antennas, he was flagging like they do on ships. He was flagging with his antennas like he was talking back at me. And so then he scooched himself all up. It's almost like he straightened up his chest and stuff. And he went walking off the table, down the table legs, onto the floor, up the counter, up the wall where I had just put brand new wallpaper. And he went up the wall, and he already had a door between the two parts where the wallpaper overlaps like this when you put it on. And he had a little door in there, and he went in there. So I thought, wow, you know, he already has a door in my new wallpaper. And anyway, so then after that, I never seen him around. And I always faithfully put all the food, the crumbs from when we were cooking and stuff, on the corner of the counter. And every morning it would be gone. And so, then time went by, you know, a month and a half or so went by, and all of a sudden there was a knock on my door. And it was a guy, and he had big tanks, and he had gas mask, and this building there's like 4 units on the side I was on this side of the street. Then it turned the corner and went down. There was about way more units there, maybe 12 units or so, and it was all had cockroach problems, he said. And they had been sent by the owner of the building to exterminate the cockroaches. And I thought, oh no, I couldn't warn the cockroaches. But then again, I never saw them again after that deal. They would just come and pick up the food at night. So I never saw any cockroaches. And so then he said, cover your dishes and take any food out or get it in the refrigerator, prepare, and then you have to leave for 4 hours, and then you can come back. So I did that. I put things away, and then I left for 4 hours and came back. And I walked around, looked in my apartment. There were no cockroaches, dead cockroaches in my apartment. So I went across the hall and knocked on my neighbor's door to see how he was doing. And when he opened the door, he had been sweeping his floor, and he was sweeping tons and tons of cockroaches up into a dustpan. They were laying all over the place. And then, anyway, so my point is about this story is, well, there's a couple points. Actually, you can communicate with the creatures, but you have to get their attention, because sometimes you can't get their attention because they're in their own little world their own little reality, like people in the city. Everybody's going about their business and they're in that reality. And no other reality can cut in there. And critters are the same way, you know, they have their business and they go about doing their thing. And so sometimes there'll come a moment when your realities clash with each other and you're aware of each other. Oh, what's that? You know. And anyway, so I wanted to make that point. And the other point is that this cockroach kept his word, and I kept my word. We had cut a deal. I'll do this if you do that type of deal. That's the kind of thing Trump does. He goes out with foreign countries and he makes deals for our benefit of our country. And they have to get benefited too in some way. So that you make a trade, you cut a deal with each other. And you have to keep your word. And the cockroach kept his word and I kept my word. And so it worked out pretty good. Until this third event transpired that nobody knew about, and then that kind of happened. But I just wanted to make that point. So part of the executive branch is authority. Each branch of government has its own authority and its own business it's supposed to be conducting. And one branch can't try to override another branch. They're supposed to be equal. And the one branch that is considered the most dangerous of the three branches is the legislative, because they can overshoot their commission and try to take more. And so the president has the veto power, and that's supposed to keep the legislative branch in check. That's the one power he has to be able to do that. And anyhow, so it's what we see now is really a big misstep going on in the legislative branch. What we're seeing play out before our eyes. Anyway, so I thought I would just show that the three branches of government, they have a deal, you know. Each branch is to conduct certain things and do certain things and not overstep that. And they have to keep their word to each other, and they have to all be working for the United States and nobody else, and not for themselves. So, and part of the executive branch is to protect the United States, protect the people's rights. So that's all I was going to say about that right now. Another issue that I wanted to talk about was about women and what's going on here. You know, women's natural role. But that's a big topic. And it's really involved also. Mainly because I can talk from two different perceptions. One is in traditional North American Indian culture, women were respected. Women were considered to be a little bit more spiritual than men because they bring in new life. And men were commissioned to be the guardian of that, to be the guardian of the sacred circle. Even if it needs be, they have to lay their life down. They are the guardian of that. They protect the woman and the children. And that's man's basic commission. That's like his first commission. But we see that in the cultures that came here from across the sea, not just the white culture, but the Asian culture, the culture from India, other cultures, when they came, they had been oppressing women. They had been using women and abusing them. And we see this going on today. Now, I think a good example of that is the Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones, they had 8 seasons, was an interesting story line, and it was supposed to be based on English history. A lot of the things that happened in the Game of Thrones were supposed to have really happened in different situations in England. And so, but then again, it was all smushed together in different ways. And of course, the author was creative with it, and it wasn't like totally accurate as far as history goes. It was just that situations were lifted from actual events in history. Anyway, so in the Game of Thrones, you see what you would think would be strong female characters. And yet, at the end of the Game of Thrones, the only women that survived without being molested were those that acted like men. One became an assassin. See, it's been a while since I saw that movie, but the surviving women at the end, and Daenerys, the one that was favored to transform the whole thing, gets murdered by a guy that supposedly loved her. Anyway, let's see, where does this go here? Okay, now, no one was happy with the way the thing ended. Different people had different reasons why they weren't happy with the ending. So I've got, there's 8 seasons, I've got 7. I'm not even going to get the 8th season because it was such a drag. Anyway, to me, they said the directors were in a hurry to end it. Anyway, many people were disappointed with it. So the only female characters that survived were they dressed like males. Arya was the assassin. Brienne became the knight in shining armor. Arya became a womanizer, and then the surviving guys on the council talked about rebuilding the brothels. So they never learned a damn thing throughout the whole thing, and they never transformed. But you got to remember, it's coming out of England. They were not like the United States, who chose to get rid of the aristocracy and govern themselves. So England never went through that, or they went through it half meal. Anyhow, so Daenerys, she ended up being betrayed, and by Jon Snow. Jon Snow's only 2 women that loved him. He betrayed them and got them killed. And I thought that was kind of a putrid ending there. Anyhow, but it just shows that womanhood is not valued. The only women that get partially valued are ones that are dressing and acting like men, or what they consider men, those men acted like. So, it's a whole different mentality than the North American Indian. 2 totally different ways. Or like you go in India, where they have the untouchables, and some guy marries a woman for a dowry and then kills her, and that's what they do. That's what they did. So there's no value on the female except to get her stuff. And I think that the Queen of England, Elizabeth, her father beheaded her mother and disposed of 5 other queens, I think it was 5. And so when she was in process of becoming the queen, she did not want to get married because she saw what happened to women when they got married. The guy took everything and disposed of her. So she thought, oh, no, that's not going to happen to me. So she ruled for 40 years. She was good. She was, for them, a good queen. So there's this different idea about it. And we see this played out yet even today. There's really a strange thing going on with the males and the females here. Um, let's get back to when the white man came here, and this is just another example. White people carried a bag across their chest like this, strap across their chest, and they had a big bag where all the seeds were, and they walked along and threw the seeds out like this. It was called broadcasting. Well, they never prepared the ground. They never mulched the ground. They never selected the best seeds. They just grabbed a handful and helter-skelter threw them out there. So they really didn't know about planting. They had very little natural food of their own, where the Indian culture produced 67% of the food known in the world today. So you know that it was a great garden here. There was a lot of cultivation going on. There were things that, I remember the trees. If you look in the 30s photographs, say the 1930s, the butt of a tree laying down that had been logged, is laying down, and you'll see a picture of a man, this round, huge butt of the tree, and the man is only about this tall next to it. This is how tall and big these trees were. Huge, big, beautiful trees. And there was huge canopies, tall, way up there, green canopies. And so there was no undergrowth. There were beautiful paths in the woods. And animals, we used to have caribou here because they have a wide antler. And so they were able to run around in our forests, and people hunted them. But then once the white man came and logged everything, and then you get this scrubby stuff coming up, and bushes and weeds and all this other stuff coming up, and trees that are almost growing on top of each other, little short trees. The caribou can't get through there with their antlers anymore, so they migrated north. So the white man would come and look at the forest, and he would go, "Oh man, look at that lumber. I can make a lot of money on this. I'll be rich." He doesn't see that this tree has a huge village of herbs around it, of many different kinds. Each different type of tree grows around itself different types of herbs. You know, a pine tree may attract different plants than a cedar tree or a birch tree. They'll attract different kinds of plants around them. And then the animals, they go there, and that's where they pick their medicine that they might need, or the food that they might need. And that's where the Indians would gather their medicines. So when you destroy a tree, you're destroying all these herbs and foods you're destroying. And you're destroying the habitat for birds and little animals that live in these trees. And then they also produce oxygen, and they keep the earth stable, and things like that. So, no, you can't come there with this little tiny short-sighted mind and say, "Oh, look at the lumber, I'll be really rich if I can just get about an acre of them trees, So that's all this selfish, personal, whatever, without taking into account all the life that's being supported there and what's happening. And to us, when we look into the forest, we see all these things. They mean something to us. Not only that, but there's teachings there. The Great Spirit wrote teachings in every single animal and bird. Things that you can learn from them. And when you see them in a sacred manner, you lift their soul up, and the teachings can come to you then. You look at them in a sacred manner, then those teachings can come to you. But if you just see nothing and you think it's all dead, like not that long ago, the last generation or so, they thought everything that wasn't them was dead and they could use it. That was the attitude. It's not like that. And I'm saying that this planet, beautiful blue and green planet, spacecraft Earth, we're on a spaceship Earth. We don't need to build these little metal contraptions and think we're in a spaceship. We're on a spaceship. The earth is our spaceship. We've been sent here, and when we incarnate into a body, into a earth body, we come here as a spirit, we incarnate into that earth body to experience the earth, to experience the lessons and the teachings that we can get here, that the Creator put here for us to learn. And our people chose to harmonize with it, chose to observe it, and move in harmony with it, move in harmony with the creation. Like you'll see many, many kinds of birds, and you'll see many, many kinds of animals. Horses, foxes, bears, dogs, cats. You see many types of animals, and you see many types of birds living in the forest. And they all get what they need. Nobody takes more than they need. They only take what they need, and they manage all these different beings who have a different reality, manage to harmonize. Now, left them there. You might call it, if you're a Christian, in the Garden of Eden. And our people looked at the Garden of Eden and said, we choose to harmonize. They chose to harmonize. You don't have to harmonize with it. Obviously, a lot of people chose to pretend it wasn't there. Except only as something for them to make something with. You know. So, we're coming from two totally different realities, and that's why we've never really been able to communicate very well together. The reason that this country was so rich with resources is because our people took care of it. They husband it. That's what a husband does. They husband it. They take care of it. They don't waste it. Anyway, so I wanted to say that. That's the tip of the iceberg there. Wanted to talk about that a little bit. And, I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Oh yeah, I'm talking about women. And why women are having such a hard time. Okay, now we know when the Constitution was formed that it said equality for everybody. Except women. They weren't allowed to vote. Minorities weren't allowed to vote. So it was really, when it started out, equality for men. And then it got expanded because it's a process. People are growing into the concepts. They're growing a little at a time each generation. And so now it includes women. It's supposed to include minorities. It's supposed to include everybody. Equality for all. Except that it doesn't include the creatures. It doesn't include the life of the water. I don't know if anybody remembers seeing that Japanese video where he shows that in geometric patterns that when water has been even run at angles through pipes, it destroys their formation. It destroys it in a way. It hurts it. He showed when you give love and appreciation to the water, you love the water, it transforms it back, it heals it, and these geometric forms coalesce into perfect forms. But when it's been harmed, you look at it under water in a microscope and you see that it's all disintegrated, that the forms are not there. They're busted up. And so he showed that your feelings, what you project toward it, influences it. And I think scientists discovered this too when they were studying the atom, that whatever they expected, that's kind of what happened. They're influencing it. When you walk into a room and you walk in with a good heart, a loving heart, you influence it. People will be more positive. But if you come in with a bad attitude and you're angry, uh, then it influences in a negative manner. So people influence each other, and they influence everything that's around them. Or with animals, you can tell this too. If you see an animal and you act scared, oh, I'm scared, well, then the animal gets scared too, because he thinks, oh, there's something to be scared of here. And it's because you were scared to start with. And it's subtle like that. And that's what's going on. So I just wanted to share that. And another thing I want you to think about when you're thinking about women, the woman carries a baby in water. They say our body's 75% made up of water. And according to statistics in this country, men are more likely to beat up women when they're pregnant than at any other time. And that's really backward. That's really backward, because when you oppress women, when you oppress them, you're driving the evolution of your people backward, because the woman carries a child, and however she's feeling, it influences what kind of spirit is going to choose to come in there. It influences that. So if you think positive thoughts and good thoughts about the woman in your life, then it's more likely that good things will happen. And the same with women. If they're more positive, then they'll attract more positive men. So, and children. And that's a whole nother issue I'd like to talk about at some other future date. Talk about having children. I suppose I could mention a little bit right now. Okay, so when people came here, they were broadcasting seeds. They didn't know how to select good seeds. They didn't know how to prepare the ground and mulch the soil and all this, and then come back and take time to water everything. They didn't know that. They just broadcasted it out there and let what happened happen. So they learned how to garden from the Indians, and the Indians were great gardeners. Like I said, they produce 67% of the food eaten in the world today. So the same when you have a baby. When you have a baby, you get married and you're going to raise a family. The man is supposed to guard that woman while she's pregnant, because any outside influences that are harmful to her, he has to keep that away from her and make her feel protected. And that will bring in a really good kid. So on the abortion issue, if you've got a woman whose man is not there, or he's beating her up or whatever, the situation is not correct. Maybe she's a prostitute and she doesn't want kids. She's very shallow and just wants to play. Whatever reason they go in for, or maybe she has a family. She already has a baby, and the family will bring, another baby will bring too much hardship on the family. So they wait. Well, we'll abort this one, and then a few years later, then it'll get born. So you want to attract at birth a good spirit, and you do that by having a good environment. You don't just helter-skelter bring them in. And now men are demanding this. You got the far right demanding that the minute the egg meets the sperm, it meets the egg, there's a living being and we cannot abort it. And then you got on the other hand the liberals. Well, right after it's born, even if the mother doesn't want it, we got to kill the baby. Both of those are just ridiculous, and because earth, and you're taking an earthen body, when your spirit incarnates upon the earth and it puts on an earthen shield while it's here. Like if you were going to incarnate on Uranus, you'd get a whole different kind of body, not this kind of body. You'd never survive there. Your spirit is incarnating there for a purpose, to learn things. And if you're conscious about what you're doing, and it's done in a good way, then we can raise the evolution of humanity in one generation. But if you're helter-skelter, bring it in, it's one cell divided already, bring it in. Never mind if anybody can feed it. Never mind if anybody's going to love it. Never mind that it's going to be all crippled up and won't be able to manifest anyway. You know, there's all these excuses. It's ignorance. Anyway, that's all I had to say for today so far. Thanks for listening.
History told me they came to be in this country.